I was very much excited. I've been waiting for this throughout the whole NFL season to do this, and I guess I'll give a little backstory, and Lou can fill in the holes. So when I first met Lou, it was not as much NFL knowledge as he has now. And I guess I can let you come in here, Lou, but you mentioned you got NFL Plus on a promotion, and I gotta say, as a bystander, someone that is pretty invested in the NFL, just seeing you grow in NFL knowledge every single week as you watched it was just a joy to watch. But I guess it's best to obviously get a firsthand account. So, Luke, can you talk a little bit about, getting that NFL Plus and just slowly seeing, more and more time spent watching the NFL, which I'm guessing you didn't watch nearly as much before.
No, and I didn't watch it as much before, mostly because um, I just didn't have live TV. Got rid of cable and just didn't
Mm.
have the channels. Um, and occasionally would want to watch and would turn on some, one of the live TV streamers. Was always frustrated because all I wanted to watch was the games, and some of them didn't carry all the channels. It was just a matter. NFL Plus was great for me because I get just the NFL games, and I have to say, even though it feels like a fire hose, the Redzone
Mm.
is the best way to watch.
Mm. Better than a traditional broadcast, you think?
Oh, absolutely. At first it felt like you were at someone's house who was very impatient changing the channels, but I mean, you do get to watch basically all the games all at once, um, and get a sense. Some of the it was always frustrating to me when I would watch a game, and then the one I thought was going to be lame ended up being the really most exciting one. And
Mm.
with that, you don't miss it. But it's it's been interesting. It's also horrifying as a just the amount of injuries and people really kind of basically just hurting themselves for profit is I feel a little guilty about that part.
Mm. And I want to fill in the gaps a little bit there more too with your backstory as well too. So, I mean, you said you weren't watching football there for a while. What has just been just your experience with football, with sports, just in general? Because like if it's not, like you said, it's not in there. So like going out and I mean, is it like are we getting the newspaper and box score type situation? Like, just what has been
Yeah,
your history with football?
just I mean the highlights. I think I was never really into sports, and mostly because my dad was never really into sports and of any
Mm.
kind. But I always kept track of some of the local stuff, and the highlights are always great to kind of catch up on what happened and have a little water cooler talk at work. But that was basically it. Um, it's I kind of go back and forth on it. I basically skipped the first, 5 weeks of the season just because there's so much happening in terms of teams settling in and
Hmm.
um, but yeah, that's and I just got into it. I think I got it like week 8, and that was that was fun. That was fun to start there.
So did you
Yeah,
get?
and oh
Oh,
yeah,
sorry. I was gonna say,
no,
well,
I
did you get into the NFL because of the way the streaming package was set up, or because football is just the biggest sport?
I think just because it is for me a little more accessible than football. Like, and I mean football, like, the rest of the world knows football,
Yeah.
soccer, what we call soccer. Um, I it's just it's a little easier to get into. A lot of those other games from Europe are just happening in the middle of the night or super early in the morning. Not, and it's just a good distraction. It's a pleasant distraction. That's basically it.
Yeah, and I know at some point in the season, when I was asking, when we were talking, and I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" And you're like, "It's football." What are you talking about?
Mm.
So, can you talk a little bit about, not having football in your life and then going through the week and, the weekends just being sectioned off the football, like how that change felt, how it happened. You know, people around you just having that section off when you normally don't have that.
What's it like losing your Sundays?
Oh, it's great. I love it. It's a good excuse to get a lot of great snacks and a beer and just, you know, have a relaxing day. It's a nice thing. I really enjoy it. It's something different. I will say that you know, I don't always understand all the minutia of the rules. But you know, they do a pretty good job explaining most of that. So as a relatively new-ish observer, you know, watcher of the game, it's fun. Plus, I don't really have a team I root for, so it's really low stakes and just entertaining on, you know, face value. Close games are always exciting. They're exciting, even though I don't care who's going to win. It's exciting to watch.
Now, the problem with that is, though, I mean, you're only 1 year in. So inevitably, if you go back and watch again next year, you're like, if you keep watching year to year, you're just naturally going to gravitate. I don't know if it's going to be to a team, to a player. Like, are you ready for that to happen? Like actual emotional attachment to the game if you keep watching? Because it's going to happen.
No, it's happened. Like it's happened with basketball, of course, when the Warriors are playing, because my family is into the Warriors, and I'm like, all right, I'll watch. And definitely disappointing when teams lose, but yeah, no. And when I watch the games, I definitely have teams I'd rather see win than not others. But it's certainly not. I'm not. It doesn't ruin my weekend to if a team loses.
And you're a Bay Area native as well too. We should say that, you know, not just in the Bay now, but you grew up in the Bay as well.
Born and raised.
So
educated.
Is that when you say Warriors, is that Steph you're talking about for like a guy that popped off?
Yeah,
as like somebody that you had emotional attachment with?
You know, for me, yeah, I mean, with basketball, I'm kind of flow in and out. I like the finals. Just watching the finals is always fun.
And being a Warriors fan is good for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't always.
Yeah.
You know, pre Steph, it was not.
True.
But it definitely has been. And although lately it hasn't been again. So, you know, it's up and down.
It's up and down. Well, it is funny you bring up Bay Area sports, because we do have a Bay team in the Super Bowl next weekend, and this is why I had to make sure to get you on before the end of the Super Bowl. I don't know. I think Rem and I, we might, you know, I think it's pretty obvious where I'm going to lean. You know, last week's game kind of put an end of any anti-Mahomes ideas I might have had. But what about you, Lou? I mean, we know, like we just mentioned, you've been watching all year, and I know you've been watching these playoff games. So, you know, which way are you leaning? You know, to the go or to the San Francisco team? Like, where are we at right now?
If I'm leaning towards anything, it's probably to the 49ers, but that's only because, again, my family is so into it that I feel like I have to, you know, respect that allegiance a little. But, you know, I didn't think the Chiefs were going to make it. We're going to do much better in the season. And, you know, they lost some games, obviously, that they shouldn't have. They lost games they shouldn't have lost in a very disjointed way. It's just kind of hard to understand what happened. And we almost saw that last week with the Lions, and somehow they pulled it out of the bag. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game.
And now that you've, like you're saying, this is your first year watching football. This is also our first year. Well, not, you know, first year watching football, but first year back into watching football. This is also our first year without Tom Brady in the 20th century. So I just want to know, like, in the Brady run, were you like, were you aware of what was going on? I mean, obviously you were, because everybody was, but like,
yeah.
I guess I want to know, like, eye test wise, did you watch Brady, and then compared to watching Mahomes this year, like the Mahomes, especially with this game, really has a chance to be elevated into the GOAT conversation. I know a lot of it is going to be like talking points, more so his resume being, you know, quite on par with Brady at this point. But, you know, if you're like just dipping your toe into football now and you never got to see Brady, like, can you imagine a quarterback being better than Mahomes?
It's good to know that it is at least not me.
So I want to know, Lou, if you know, this is, again, is your first year dipping your toe back into football. And this has also been our first year without Tom Brady into football. So I know Mahomes has a real chance in this game to elevate into, and I don't know if it's going to be like TV talking points for Mahomes being in the GOAT conversation, but you know, it's going to happen. If this game, you know, if they win this game, if he plays really well, we're going to get the talking points. So, you know, like, were you watching the Brady thing when it happened? And like, if so, like, what has been the eye test for Mahomes? Like, can you actually see another quarterback being better than Mahomes just watching him at the peak of his powers right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, definitely Brady and Gronk were pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow it seemed like Brady was everywhere in a way that I don't feel like Mahomes has been, but clearly statistically he has. Um, but yeah, I mean, he's impressive when, and seems to have, uh, you know, everyone talks about the experience about being in the playoffs, and I don't think I really understood that until watching some of these playoffs games where, you know, there's just calm. It's just some confidence, and in a way that you know, other teams like, you know, the Ravens kind of didn't go into that with that same thing. It's interesting to see.
No, it is, and you know, it's just crazy how you can just see him game after game. Just it seems like he has a confidence not only for the offensive side of ball, but the defense too. And I think, you know, these last couple of games, you know, they've been actually, I think they've scored 0 points in the last two second halves. Or yeah, I think the last two games they haven't scored any, and even against that Dolphins, they definitely weren't as explosive in that second half. And it's just the assurance that they were going to win, just pretty much willed them to win. And, you know, even you could see the contrast between him to Lamar, where, you know, he had that interception, where they had all those mistakes. And even in the game against the Texans, he did have under 200 yards. I mean, he didn't play at his MVP level the last two games. So I don't know. It's going to be weird. Lamar getting the MVP, having as many MVPs as playoff wins. But you know, it is going to be interesting to see if Mahomes can take that final step. But that isn't the number one story, at least from the socials, from media. You know, the rest of the world outside of sports, it doesn't seem like that's the number one story. Lou, how now that Taylor Swift is obviously not gonna leave. It's just not gonna disappear. How do you feel about 2 straight weeks of Taylor Swift promotion as we ramp up to this Super Bowl in Las Vegas?
You know, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it seems like the right wingers are really fired up, and the hardcore fans are really fired up, and like it just I'm like, cool. You know, they're a power couple, and she shows up to the games, and the TV shows her a lot. Like, that's not her fault. Like, you know, they have a celebrity in the house, and fine. Like, it doesn't bother me. It's not a distraction for me, as much as it is for other people. Yeah. I mean, it's like, whatever. His girlfriend's at game. Who cares?
Huh. Did you see the number? There was, like, for money that she has generated for the NFL. And I didn't see all the revenues. Sam, do you remember what it was? I want to say it was like
Yeah, I think it's about 300 million. And even with
Whoa.
Yeah.
talking to producers and TV producers, I mean, they're saying her being at the game is a godsend. Like it is ratings. Like the ratings cannot be denied.
Did you see it at all in that last game, Sam? You said that one of the questions you had going in was, does the league want Taylor in the Super Bowl? I mean, and clearly the numbers
Yeah.
prove they might.
I mean, and then the numbers for the Super Bowl are through the roof. It's like it is one of the smallest stadiums in the league, but it is also Vegas, so it's just going to be a really expensive game to go. I think to get in the door, you need to pay 8,000 per seat. It's like
Wow.
2.5 million to get a suite. I
Yeah.
mean, there's family of players saying they can't even afford to get in. I don't know. It's a really expensive, highly amped affair, and it's going to be really interesting. But I guess my last question, and that as pretty much you showing Lou, with you watching it and it being so entertaining, can you talk a little bit about why you think the NFL is so entertaining? Because it is something interesting every year, time after time, and I know why it's entertaining to me, like the storylines and stuff, but year after year, we always get the TV ratings, and the NFL dominates. They're just taking over live TV constantly. And as someone who, has gotten hooked onto it, as the rest of us, what brought you in? What kept you watching?
I mean, I think it's mostly the fact that you just don't know what's going to happen, right? I mean, it's like a scratcher. You hope it's going to be interesting, and sometimes it's a winner, and sometimes it's not. But it's yeah. I mean, I think with like college ball, the unpredictable level is so high that that's also entertaining, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
really weird. With the NFL, there's some, you can predict a little bit about what's going to happen because there's a lot more consistency to the players, but yet still, you don't know when someone's going to, do a 90-yard punt return, for a touchdown. Like that stuff happens, and it's just kind of, or one-handed catches like right on the edge, or it's
Jennings.
there's a lot of yeah, unpredictability that kind of makes it interesting.
I want to go back a little bit to the players that we were talking about as well, too, in the Super Bowl. With the quarterbacks, too. Purdy, like, do you form opinions on these guys based on the draft? Because that can definitely be a thing that a lot of sports fans can fall into. And that's one of the things that has affected Purdy with his perception. I mean, do you like what you've seen from Purdy this year? And how do you think of him as a quarterback in the league, kind of being, a newer observer?
For me, maybe it's because I'm a writer. I just think of the narrative. Like it's a good story. It's a good story, and I feel the same way about some of the other quarterbacks like Goff and Mayfield, who were kind of they came a lot. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of hope with them
Yeah.
coming in, and then they didn't work out in that particular team, and then being cast off. It's kind of nice to have that narrative of them, kind of redeeming themselves. So yeah, definitely the story definitely helps, but also I have to feel for them because there's so much pressure. I can't imagine coming in as a college kid and having this so much expectation on you to perform at a kind of superhuman level. I don't know. I mean, clearly the people who are there playing are just insanely talented, moving kinetically, catching, running, eye-hand coordination. Like it just, yeah, it must be intimidating.
And the Goff thing, especially too, that you pointed out as well. I mean, him and Baker both former #1 overall picks, like you said, reclamation projects. And me and we did a podcast on Tuesday after the game talking about Goff, and just I think this playoff run has been really good for him, his stature in the league. I think just in general, people trusting him in playoff games. I thought he was big at the end of that Niners game, even though I mean, because he had some of the drops as well too, but I thought Goff was really hitting those throws. Have there been any other like stories that you said, you really follow the narrative? Have there been any other stories or players that have jumped out from the season at all?
Gosh, I mean, well, I mean, in some ways, Lamar has been one of those where you kind of feel like he's haunted in some ways by
Hmm.
something, and you kind of hope that he finds his mojo, that he finds his strength and is able to continue to. He seems like he gets spooked, like
Hmm.
he has a couple of he seems to have some moments where he doubts, and that kind of overwhelms him in a way. I don't quite know how else
Sure.
to explain it. I mean, as a very casual viewer, like you and Sam have very Rem and Sam, you both have such a like in-depth, you know, analytical perspective on this, where mine is just very kind of cursory overview. Um, but but in terms of other stories, I mean, I obviously just the Lions in general, um,
Of course.
making such a transition, like it's a shame that because they didn't advance farther, that it's seen as a failure. But like, 3 seasons they went from winning 3 games, I think, something like that, to
Hmm.
winning
Yeah.
the next season, winning, I think, like half
8.
of them, 8 or 9 or something like
Yeah.
that. And then, this year, the third year, they made it to the playoffs. I mean, that is a huge win. There's nothing to be ashamed about in that. And yet, that there's always, you know, if you don't win everything, then you somehow lose. I think that's silly.
And the Lions
And
are a
it is.
team too that I think a lot of people have kind of said can be like they were definitely dealing with some kind of curse there for
Yeah.
a while. And I know you said you don't have any like emotional attachment to stuff. So does that mean you're not like a superstitious kind of fan in a way? Like you don't have any sports superstition? Do you believe in sports curses at all?
Um, Maybe because I don't watch it, and I haven't seen it long enough
Mm.
to believe it. But
Hmm.
I think people defeat themselves more often than any
Mhm.
kind of curse.
That's true. And I do love the point you bring up about the Detroit Lions, because when their coach came in to the job, he was at his press conference, he was talking about biting people's knees off. Like, it seemed like just a football kind of meeting almost. And then, now they're in the NFC Championship, at halftime, looking like it's time to punch the tickets to Vegas. And, even if they didn't make it all the way, yeah, I think that's a great success story, and yeah, I really loved watching it all year long. And yeah, I think that is one of the things with the NFL that the broadcasts do really well, is telling the stories. I think they have like intentional production meetings. They get to really talk to the players, and I think something that's interesting is they'll talk to them near the beginning of the season, and where they're at then, and then they'll talk to them again later and be like, oh, this is how they develop. So yeah, I think that's a great point about the them talking to him. But I know you mentioned analytical analysis. I'm agree with you, Lou. I mean, Lamar, it's just he does get spooked. He does get scared. It
Yeah.
does the pressure gets to him. I mean, that's literally it. We've seen this is the second time as number one seed that they underperformed massively, and all the stats were in their favor, and yeah, they couldn't get it done. They
Yeah,
really
Sam,
I
we
mean,
couldn't.
said, oh, sorry to cut you off. Lee, go ahead.
go ahead, Brim.
Well, I was going to say, Sam, we said on the Tuesday pod that we thought the moment that really shifted for Lamar was the strip sack by Menahue. And it wasn't just the fact
Yeah.
that they got the ball back, scored, what that did to the, 2 scores at that point in the game, but what that did for Lamar's psyche, because you just go through the rest of the passes at that point. And I think like 4 of his next 5 passes were all batted down. That I don't know if you think that was the moment that mentally kind of shifted, but I thought, yeah, that definitely something happened in that game where he was not seeing things correctly after that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And it was, I mean, the strip sack to definitely set him back a lot. And it was just, and then he's throwing into triple coverage, and it was just a bad thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't know how the Chiefs won that game, to be honest. But
Mm.
they just out machoed them, I guess. They just, they were just more ready to win.
And I saw people trying to defend that play as well too by Lamar, where the defender might have pushed likely off track. Like you can see, if you see like the all 22 from behind angle, you can see where likely is headed and where the ball is headed, and it's kind of in the same spot. But again, there's like 4 guys right there. So I get the ball's in line, but there's 4 guys. Bush is making a play over, so I don't really know how you defend the thing. Would you trust Lamar in a playoff game next year, Lou?
Ooh, I think he needs to. I think he needs to find a perspective for him that works. Like here, I'm a terrible poker player because I have a hard time not having my eyebrows move around and be a complete ridiculous tell. But like the concept of it, like, have you guys played enough to know like what a bad beat is?
A bad beat? Well, I know just a bad beat in gambling. Well, probably not for poker. No, probably not.
Well,
for
I mean,
poker.
it's probably the same. It's like
SPP's bad beats is probably not the same thing.
A bad beat is in poker, at least, is when you've done everything you were supposed to do, mathematically speaking, in terms of the cards that you were dealt and the cards that other people had or
okay,
shown.
yeah. So okay.
And so you were doing everything you were supposed to, and really, the odds just, for whatever reason, that went bad. So a bad beat is basically a hand where you're like, okay, I did everything right, everything I should have, and it didn't work. And instead of beating yourself up about it, like what you could have done, you just say, bad beat, that was a bad beat. I'm going to continue on. And I feel like with Lamar, in some ways, he takes those bad beats, to heart, and it just, psychically weighs on him. And he just needs to be like, okay, you know what? That was just a weird thing, an anomaly. I'm going to try again and not get so shook by all that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you said there. And what I was gonna say was on Sports Center, Scott Van Pelt does this ESPN Sports Center, and he has a segment. One of his segments he does is bad beats. So it'll be like in an NBA game if the spread was like 12 points. So it's like a meaningless bucket at the end of the game that a guy will get in transition, makes a meaningless layup. The bad beat. So I didn't know in poker if it was gambling. I figured it was kind of the same thing, but I didn't know cards. Layups, what the crossover was there, but
yeah.
I feel like there's probably been a World Series of poker moment in the bad beats, and I probably just missed it. I need to be more committed to the SVP.
I meditate a lot, so for me, it's such an interesting concept because when you meditate, you're really trying, as someone, all you're doing is trying to build awareness of yourself. You're practicing awareness and trying not to get weighed down by things that, I catch myself sometimes walking down and making up some story or getting angry about something that's never happened or probably won't happen. And it's like, whoa, okay, let's come back to here where none of that is going on. And, instead of getting frustrated on really silly things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what some of the quality that we've seen a lot of the great quarterbacks have in being able to shake it off. I mean, like we mentioned earlier with Tom Brady going down 28-3 on the biggest stage, just taking it one play at a time. Same thing with Mahomes in his first playoff run, being down in every single game to his first Super Bowl.
That Texans game?
Yeah, that was crazy. And then, coming back so much, scoring so much in the second half that the stadium ran out of fireworks. So, it's just, yeah, I think that's exactly right in terms of that's one of the skills that the best players have is being able to shake off the really bad beats. And it's something that Lamar still needs to develop because, like we know, but, it is something that can get forgotten that with the playoffs, I mean, it's do or die, it's in or out. So it makes sense that the pressure can keep mounting, but yeah, we'll have to see if that is something he develops before he gets another MVP and no playoff success.
And Lou, just to let you know, the playoff game that we were referencing as well, too, the comeback was this Mahomes' first season in the league? Oh no, this was his first Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
First
Yeah.
Super Bowl run. The Texans, they were playing back when Deshaun Watson was on the Texans. They were playing the Texans. The Texans were up 24-0, and then the Chiefs went on to outscore them, I think, like 51-7
Yeah.
for the rest of the game.
It was
Did I
wild.
do that math right? Beat them 51-31?
Yeah. It should be 51-7.
I feel
That was
like
a
that's
great
the
game.
moment Sam knew at that moment that when did you set the over under for 3 Super Bowls in that moment?
Oh gosh. I was sweating it after the Bucks Super Bowl. That was where I was sweating. But when we talk about how Rem and I aren't experts, but you are, Lou. You are a book writer, and I know you've written more than one book, but the one we'll focus on is something that, your name isn't really on it, and I know it's at the back somewhere. It's kind of hidden, but Lou is the writer of the official Downton Abbey cocktail book, Appropriate Libations for All Occasions.
Oh, it's getting blurry. I don't know.
I know. Oh, there we go.
There it is.
There we go. And he has been so kind as to give me a copy, so I've been able to read a little bit. And Rem, I don't know. Did you get a look? Did you?
I think I might have got a copy too.
We gotta support. Please.
Gotta support.
We gotta support.
Thanks.
So, I mean, Lou, we've never had a legit writer on the pod, so you can go as detailed or as overview as you want, but I guess just talk a little bit about, what it takes to even get contacted about this, start this, and just the process of making it from an idea to something that you can buy on Amazon right now.
Oh, yeah, the whole process. Okay. Maybe
just walk us through it quick.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think for me, probably it all began maybe 10 years ago more than that, when I was really, I had transitioned out of a tech job and had always passionately loved cooking and always dreamed about doing it and thought I should do it one day, and one day just decided, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be ridiculously poor, and started working in kitchens and was working as a prep cook, basically spending all day chopping onions or celery or things like that.
And this was after the tech job? This is not like right out of school?
No, this is after a tech job. And I was unbelievably happy. And I was making very little money. And I wanted to explore everything about food. And I went on to, besides doing prep work, was working at a farmer's market, made cheese for a while, was a baker, worked on photo shoots, preparing food for the shoot itself, worked at a distillery, and did that for a while, was working as a bar back at some bars, and started getting into more and more spirits. And really the reason I started getting into spirits was because my girlfriend at the time did not like wine. And so at home, opening a bottle of wine just didn't make any sense. But if I opened a bottle of whiskey or something else and made a cocktail, then I could, make a drink, put it back, and not have to worry about it going bad or what to do with it. So for me, that was the entry point into spirits, and then working at a bar, continued that, and then writing about it for a long time taught me an awful lot. But yeah, so that's how I get into the whole thing, and the knowing what the differences are between the brands and the aging process and everything else. So that was the foundation for just the cocktail stuff. And how I got into the writing was because I was writing about cocktails. That's how they reached out to me, was because they knew that, I knew my stuff about drinks. I think for me, I had never seen the show when they approached me about it. So I was hesitant. and it's a brand book. So with brand stuff, you normally don't get your name in it. Certainly not on the cover unless you're a huge draw. You're some famous chef. But for me, that was fine. What I needed to do for myself was to make it an interesting project for me. And since I hadn't watched the show, at that point, I thought, well, before I start getting into it, let me think about this a little bit. I started watching the shows, and I realized that the time in history when the show happened coincided with basically prohibition happening in the US and all of these really talented bartenders leaving and going to other parts of the world. And so what used to be a very American idea, cocktails, started going to other places. So there was probably most famously there was an American guy named Harry Craddock who ended up in London at a place called the Savoy, and he really kind of made that popular. Before, in Europe, they drank wine, they drank brandy, they drank other stuff,
Okay.
but they certainly didn't drink cocktails. The cocktails were apparently partially unique to America because we had figured out how to harvest ice in the winter and then figure out a way to store it. So, there was always ice in these cocktails, and ice is an important component, obviously, in drinks. Anyway, that's a very long story to say that for me, I framed that that's how I approached the book. Writing the book was with that knowledge of, like, this is the beginning of basically cocktail introduction into Europe, and really other parts of the world. And so that made it super interesting for me because it wasn't just about the show, but it was a way to integrate what was happening in the show with what was happening in real history. And definitely included, I researched, I found a repository of books from the 1930s that were in London. There was a book from the 1930s, I think, that was the United Kingdom's Bartenders Guild official cocktail book, and so it was really interesting to do all the research and figure out what was happening, what was authentic, what was kind of happening at that time, and then bring those stories back into the book. So that was probably how I had fun writing it, and I had fun making the drinks, testing. I would write during the day, do research during the day, and write, and then at night I would have like 7 cocktails I would try to mix and variations. Yeah, I remember going to the store and coming out with close to $1,000 worth of liquor.
Oh my goodness!
To test cocktails.
And you get reimbursed for that?
That came out of my advance, but yeah. That was a write-off, at least.
Okay. $1,000 worth of alcohol as a write-off is not the worst thing in the world. But so what was the initial passion then? Was it you got into food first and then writing, or they were both kind of simultaneous?
I got into food first, and that was my passion. And then I started working at a distillery called St. George, which is what I'm drinking now.
There you go.
And you've written about that as well, too, I think.
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I did it for Eater. I wrote an article about them when they celebrated their 40th year in business a couple years ago. But okay, now I forgot what your question was.
Well, we should mention as well too. We should have done this off the top. We're still new at this sometimes. But do we want to website? Do you want to let people know about your website? Because they can read the articles on the website.
Yeah. I'm the Village Drunk, all one word, .com, but I'm also the Village Drunk on Instagram, so that you can find me either place. Yeah, that's where you can find all of my writing right now. Well, anyway, I think you were asking about how I got into the spirits thing. That's I found my train of thought here. So yeah, so the food came first, then the work at the distillery, because that was still part of the exploring the food, and then the writing happened. And as the writing was happening, I was also doing a lot of cocktail work, um, here and there, on my own, but also professionally. So it was kind of fun to see that evolve, and then that's how the books happened from the writing.
And like Sam mentioned as well, too, you've written a couple of books. The first book you wrote was, and forgive me if the title's not totally correct, but the Complete Cocktail Manual.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that one, was that just like a passion project that you took on your own? Because like you said, you were approached for this Downton Abbey one.
I was approached for the Downton Abbey one. I pitched the first one. And at the time, I was part of the U.S. Bartenders Guild, San Francisco chapter. And when that book idea was coming up, I thought, well, why not, kind of include the wisdom of bartenders from across the U.S. And so I think there's like 75 different bartenders who provided tips or tricks, cocktail recipes, things like that. So that was fun. It was a fun project to try to, one, to talk to so many different people, but also, to share that wisdom with a lot of other folks. And yeah, that was a fun book. And then from that, that's why I was contacted about the Downton Abbey book. And the show's great. I mean, I love the show. I was happy to have an excuse to get paid to watch TV, I guess.
Nice. And I know you've told me offline about it, but can you talk a little bit about going through that process of testing out the recipes, putting them in the book, not just for the Downton Abbey, but also the manual, and just making sure, there's so many recipes, I bet, and going through all the little intricacies, and just how much time and commitment that must take, but also I'm assuming also enjoying the process as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, obviously the process, I wasn't drinking all the drinks. I was, making them, tasting them, making sure they were.
Is tasting the key word?
Tasting, yes. Tasting, making notes. And sometimes, I'd reach a point where like, all right, whatever drink I had made or recipe I was testing was just such a powerful flavor that I was like, I can't taste anything else. Anything else I taste now after this will just be, it's like eating like something with a lot of raw onion. It's kind of hard to taste subtle things after.
Your palate's done.
Yeah, it's tired. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was fun to tweak and figure out and test all those recipes. 'Cause I had to make sure that they were good, before or that they worked before if I could make them, then I'm sure no one could. With the cocktail manual, some of the drinks are really definitely like crazy. There's a lot of syrups and really obscure things, difficult things to make, because it was supposed to be from a professional perspective. But the Downton Abbey one, I tried really hard to make it, 3-4 ingredients. Nothing super inaccessible, nothing really obscure. Tried to keep it as things that were appropriate in the era, but also accessible to the home user, the home mixer.
And while it is like a cocktail book, it's got the recipes in there and stuff too. Like, you're a writer, and the thing when I was obviously getting the book, gonna look through it, see what's in there. But the thing looking through the book is it is like an actual book. There is like history in there. There's stuff there's obviously, scenes from the movies, but there's history about the drinks, history about the show, just, general thoughts. And like, your approach to that was, I mean, like you're saying, you're writing more than just obviously a cookbook here. It's actual, like there's actual writing involved.
Right. I mean, I think that's a lot of what I've seen in the. I every once in a while I'll just take a peek at on Amazon and see what people are saying in the reviews,
Hmm.
and I think the one that stuck with me that I thought was really kind of interesting was like, this book is much better than it needed to be. It could have just been like, some bunch of recipes and
Yeah,
take
I mean,
more.
it's entertaining.
Yeah, and that's what it was supposed to be, and it was thought through in terms of the kinds of things that get introduced and trying to be era appropriate. And uh, I'm pretty proud of the way it came out. I think it exceeded my own expectations. I certainly, going in, at least when I first started, I didn't know what it was going to be or how to make it my own, and I feel like I did in the end kind of accomplish some of that.
Were you
Yeah,
in?
and I just want to make sure to shout out
Mhm.
Lou. For you're right. I mean, people loved it. You look online, check the stats a little bit. 4.9 on out of 5 stars,
Perfect.
over 1,000 ratings. You know that point one is someone who got their package messed up, something like that.
Cheers, my brother.
But of course, the book was fine. The other manual 4.7. Great books, great books. They're both on sale on Amazon, so make sure you go and check them out. I gotta put a little plug for Lou. But what was your question, Rim?
Well, not getting your package, that's an Amazon problem. That's not even a problem with the
Exactly.
book. There's nothing. Don't blame it on Lou. Get the book. It's an amazing book. But were you just involved in just like the writing process or the overall process of the book as well, too? Because it's not just well written. It's a beautifully crafted book. I mean, amazing pictures, well laid out. And, it seems like, I don't know if this is trendy with like these types of books right now in general, but it seems like it almost veers on more being like a coffee table book than it does like being like a recipe or a cookbook kind of. Were you involved in just the bigger picture process too?
Actually, my wife was with a
Oh,
design.
shout out.
So yeah, and the cover design was definitely borrowed from the way a lot of those old books from the 1930s looked. And it's interesting to see that the copycats that are kind of doing this very similar thing are out there. It's kind of funny to see how many are doing the kind of the gold foil on a kind of fabric dark cover, but that's flattering. It's right.
Exactly. Yeah, imitation is the best flattery, isn't that what they say? But of course, we don't want to put a limit on your career on what you can do, Lou. And I don't know if you want to confirm anything or not, but could you ever see yourself writing another book? I know it's so much work, so much time, and you're busy with other things that both of us with work and stuff like that. But is it something you could see yourself doing in the future about cocktails or anything in general?
I could see myself doing a book. I don't know necessarily that it would be limited to anything in particular, but yeah, I mean it's a really interesting process. I think everyone has to find their groove. It's a lot of work. I remember the and things always take longer than you think they will. Like I remember the final edits. I was making the last changes to the book, the first book. Literally, I was on a train from London to Edinburgh to start a vacation, and I was madly trying to finish up the last couple of pages, and I finished the last few pages before we pulled into the station.
Pulling in.
I sent off the manual to my editor and was able to just enjoy the rest of the trip. But yeah, it just things take long. I kept thinking, oh yeah, I'll be done, and it shouldn't take me more than 6 months. And yikes, it's a lot of work. I think it was like 30,000 words or something like that. It's a lot.
What was like the oldest drink or book that you researched in this process? I think I remember reading on was there like maybe like a 18? I remember seeing like, 1800s in various points, but what was like the farthest back you went with the research on this?
I think 1800s. I mean, there were some recipes that are basically A lot of the punches are pretty old. They're from the 1700s. There are a couple of beer drinks that are basically, you take beer and you add some spices and sweeteners, and then you put a hot poker in there to heat it up. I mean, that's pretty old. But most of them I tried, at least for the Downton book, tried keeping to the era as much as possible.
Era specific.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there was obviously a little bit of leeway in terms of, I didn't stick entirely to just to the span of the show and the movies, but I tried keeping as close to that as possible.
And like we were saying too, there's history in this book. So I mean, a lot of this stuff is drawing inspiration from stuff in the past. Maybe some of the dates, it's like, hey, this drink is from this drink that's actually back then. Again, you guys got to just get the book and look into it. It's an amazing book. But you did mention something a little bit interesting about wine a little bit later. Or earlier, I did want to ask you: is there a difference between wine girls and mixed drink girls? Like, is there a different vibe? Is one better or worse? Did you say the mixed drink girl was an ex? I don't remember.
Oh no, the wine girl, the no wine girl.
Oh, the no wine girl. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's the same girl. It's that no wine girl turned into my wife. But now she likes wine,
sweet.
so it's the same. We all change, right?
There you go. It'll change. But and so, having the experience of writing those two books, what would you say was, and you mentioned all the hard work and like the amount of time it took, but what was your favorite part of the process, contrasting the two processes? Maybe they were totally different, but what was your favorite thing that, would make you want to go back to doing it again if you ever wrote again?
Ooh. I don't know. I think it's just taking an idea and being able to craft it in a way that makes sense and is interesting, and is delicious. Like that's cool. Like that feels like a magic power, like I really enjoy that communication. I think that's the part that was my favorite was, like, okay, how am I gonna talk about, this drink, and it's like, oh, okay, this is what I like about it. Let me see what I can do and edit, and I think that was the best part, really. And it doesn't mean that I got it right all the time or that everyone understands, but I think in general, it was a pretty good job.
So are you just hooked on Downton Abbey now?
I definitely have seen all the shows and all the movies, and will probably watch the next movie. But I haven't really gotten into any other cozy British period shows, so I don't know. Maybe that.
Huh. Does The Office count as a British period show?
Oh my gosh, that was an insane show. I loved it. the UK version, at least, yeah. And the American one too, but the UK one did end where I guess the American one eventually did. It went much longer.
Do you think British is better than American? I know that's a big debate.
I think they're totally different. I mean,
true.
For me, they're completely different. At least, in the first season had some episodes that were basically similar to what the British ones were, but then it kind of found its own groove and its own characters, and for me, they're totally different. The Pam in the British is definitely different than the obviously the American, but
interesting.
So the British should just stick to the bake-offs, is what you're saying? That's the show that they've got.
Man. They got some great shows. They should definitely.
He said, "Don't aggregate." I didn't say that. All the British are amazing.
But they love to murder each other in those shows. in those.
Sure.
At least my wife has Acorn, and she watches all those cozy mysteries, and it's these little villages, and they're always just offing each other. They're violent.
There was a like a British, I think, is it 10 Little Indians? Is that the story where hopefully that's still what they call it now? Is that the story where like the people are offing each other on the island? And there was like a British version of that I think, is it like Agatha Christie? Is that the right? That's like the one British thing that I've ever seen, is that production. And I gotta say, it was good. So, you know, maybe the British do it better than the Americans. Pause. Who knows? But I did want to float something else by you, Lou. So I have a theory. You said you worked in restaurants. You know, you've been around. You know, you've been in the industry, and me as well too. I know Sam as well too has also worked in restaurants. So I think all three of us have experience in here. And I just, working in that industry, you notice obviously people are at their grumpiest when they are hungry. So I was thinking, just big picture, like world history. And I know you've done a little bit of history study with this. Can a lot of like world problems just be attributed to like historical issues just being attributed to people being hungry and feisty?
I am sure to some degree. But also,
because, you know, working in the restaurant industry, again, that's when people are at their worst.
Yeah, but I think people are also at their worst because here's what I think. Okay, so we're a capitalist society, and you know, people aren't forced to go into the army. I think people should be forced to either retail or hospitality. They need to do like a year or two so that they know what it's like and have a little bit more decency. You know, like don't throw your milkshake at, you know, the poor people because they forgot, you know, some sprinkles or something like it. Just
a cherry.
Yeah, you just gotta just be nice to people because they're trying and they're not getting paid a lot. And I think everyone should be required to do that service.
It's so true. The kids should just go to work for like you can be a busser at like as like a, you know, a 15-year-old. Just go in there and see what's going on. Like you're saying, get a couple of things thrown at you. Get grown up a little bit. Get humble. It's good for you. Sam, I mean, I know it's good for you, Sam, when people getting that they didn't get the fries, the cheese curds. You can't mix that up.
No, you can't ever forget the cheese curds or the sauces. No, I definitely am very much in agreement that everyone should work in food service, retail service, something, because you can very easily see who hasn't. It shows a lot in general, but
the Marines or McDonald's, one or the other.
Oh, absolutely.
So when you were working in kitchens, was it like, what kind of kitchens were they? Were they high-end kitchens? Were they like, were we flipping burgers at the fast food?
Oh, no. I mean, it was definitely more, you know, the mid-tier to high-end kitchens. And, you know, some of them were definitely toxic environments to be working in with, you know, I guess the easiest example archetype is, you know, the one that Gordon Ramsay plays in Hell's Kitchen, where it's like, this is fucking raw in the middle, and then throws
How common is that? Is that a common chef stereotype?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's probably less common now. I think that I think it's a lot less common, but it used to be much more common. You know, I remember meeting a chef. So I was going to this high-end restaurant, and I was going to do what they call a stage, which is you basically work for free, you know, so you can get some experience. And this person I think they were a sous chef or something like that. They were, you know, kind of in the higher ranks in terms of the cooks, introduces me to the chef, and I stick my hand out to shake their hand, and they look down at it like, you know, I just offered him a piece of dog poop. And with like this disgust, like, I'm not going to shake that, or I'm not going to touch. It was just like, I was like, oh my God. And they were like, oh, so do you want to work? You want to stage here? I'm like, no, I don't want to stage
Not
here.
anymore.
Honestly, though.
Is that restaurant still in business?
Oh, no.
Yeah, they're done.
Wow. All right.
They're gone.
Hey, what goes around.
I wonder
Oh,
why.
man.
Yeah. You just can't be that mean to people
Exactly.
and expect them to be happy about it. Like, just be
What
nice.
does the restaurant scene look like out there in the Bay? Because I know Sam is new to the Bay, so he didn't see the Bay, through the pandemic. What's it been like now post pandemic?
It definitely has changed a lot. I think it's a lot harder for people, especially in some cities. Oakland, San Francisco, I know those two have been really hard hit, mostly because people just don't go to the downtowns anymore. And I definitely don't travel there as often as I used to. Not that, I am the average mean, uh, or define that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like people's eating habits changed a lot after the pandemic. I know I enjoy having friends over and going over to other people's houses for dinner or lunch or something, definitely more than I used to. Before, I was always figuring out what the new place was, traveling a
Mhm.
long distance to go check it out. And now I definitely am like, oh, something opened up in new opened up in San Francisco. It's like, well, maybe one day when I'm near the area, I'll check it out. I don't
Mm.
race over there to do it anymore, but
So
it could
it's
be.
so yeah, is that just like a bad habit then that the pandemic started where we're just all in our houses now? We
I don't
can't get
know.
out?
I mean, you
Because
and
I agree with you.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Rem and Sam, like, I don't know. Y'all are much younger than me, so how did it change for you?
I mean,
I
I
No,
I
yeah, go
think
ahead.
I think something Bay Area specific, which might have, I think definitely affects a lot of people now, is having that pandemic and not going outside your house. Get that almost culture shock that I got coming from the Midwest over here of, oh, this traffic sucks. Like this is a long time to sit and wait. And I think when you grow up with that and you're just always, like you mentioned, you're just in the groove. You're like, oh, this is normal. It's not something you realize, and then you're at home and you're used to making stuff, you're used to door dashing, you're used to going down the road, and now you go and do it and you're like, oh, this is why I like staying at home, this is why I didn't like going outside. And I think that's something that definitely has affected the area here, because as you know, Lou, I mean, it's such a hassle to get into the city, to get everywhere,
To
and
get parking
yeah, and parking as well.
Mm.
It's
and to
crazy.
not get bipped.
not get robbed. Hey, but it's still, there's plenty of nice stuff though. We don't want a Keith Lee situation happening.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, but I mean, yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, definitely the parking is. But I mean, what I have been doing, and I don't know if this is different for you both. I definitely go out, but when I go out, I definitely stay local and try to support
Hmm.
the small
Yeah.
local places here instead of, making a trek, across the city to, an hour on the road to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and especially like I know for us when we're younger, I think you geared you to do like the fast food and stuff. But and there's budget reasons for that. I'm not saying I don't definitely get the 4 for $4 from Wendy's more often than local. But if local is available and that's like a good number one option. I mean, I'm definitely taking it now, and that is post pandemic thinking about that a little bit more. So in a positive way, that you're right, that is something that has been changed for the better as well.
Yeah, and I think Vallejo, where we're at, is a great area for that. Lots of something Lou's been trying to put me on is all the food trucks. We are in this area, but I think, yeah, I think it is pretty interesting, and I guess I reference it a little bit, and it's something we've talked about, Lou, is having I guess the perception from we had Keith Lee come and leave, and then President Biden, there was issues with
Mm.
trying to get people off the streets and stuff. And, just a lot of negative media about the Bay Area. But as someone who's been in the area and very much in the food industry, can you talk a little bit about the food that is here for, we have a lot of listeners in Iowa, Midwest who don't know too much about the Bay Area, but, the good side of the food scene here and other things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is a variety of regional cuisines that certainly were not available when I was, younger. Like, think about like, definitely like I feel like Korean food right now has been kind of pretty hot for a while. Filipino food,
Hmm.
but I feel like that is where Indian food used to be. So Indian food for here
Mm.
used to be just like, tandoori chicken and stuff. And now we have regional. We have Northern Indian, we have like Southern Indian style food, just like Chinese food in Fremont. You get like the regional area styles. So you get a lot more variety. I think it's it is not. Oh, and in other places so there's a lot of like Afghan kebabs, which are amazing. Um,
Mm.
they're totally different than what you think of when you think of kebabs, like the Greek
Explain an Afghan
kebabs.
kebab.
They're marinated in all these spices. Some of them are flat. They're like these little patties that have like these blazing hot chili peppers.
Mm.
Um, they do these little dumplings that have like this yogurt sauce on top, which
I'm
are
leaning
also
in.
He wants some. He's tasting some right now.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's so different from other you know other styles of like the Islamic Chinese style kebabs, which are more like lamb, and um, it's just there's a variety of food here that is, I mean, granted, this is something I think about a lot is, you know, when you talk about a place that you should go to, I always think about, well, okay, is this a place that is worth spending 2 hours in my car and to go get, or is this a place that is fantastic because it's down the street from me?
Mm.
Like I think a lot of those, there's a lot of things like that I I always wish there was, when people tell you about all these places you should go to,
Hmm.
that there was this is definitely a destination place, or this is definitely not. I think some of the regional food is definitely destination because you're not going to find it outside of, the country there, unless you go back to China or you go to India, or you go to, these other parts of Mexico, unless you're going there,
Yeah.
you're not going to get anything like this. So I think that makes it interesting. That makes it delicious. I think for me, and I feel like maybe I don't know if I'm weird, but I understand people better when I taste their food. I
Mm.
It gives me a better sense of who they are. Like, and it's not a judgment. It's just like, oh, okay, these are the flavors, these are the ingredients that you have here. And even when it's transplanted somewhere else and the closest thing they have is, not quite exactly like it's at least uh, an idea that it's that often translates, I think, even if a little clumsily, it does the work. Um, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I enjoy, is just learning and tasting. But given that, there's also places near me that I love that, I definitely wouldn't say, come from Iowa to try this, because
Mm.
Yeah.
Is there a place? Is there a destination place? I don't know if you want to shout somebody out or not, but
oh my gosh.
you
Um,
said the some of the like the regional cultural stuff is a little more unique. I didn't know
yeah,
if there's
I
something
mean,
there.
so where I grew up in Fremont, there's a lot of um, pretty amazing regional Indian, uh, uh, Afghan, and Chinese
Mm.
cuisine. And I mean, it is something that I don't know that makes that area special. Um, there's a little Saigon in San Jose, south of there, that has, some pretty amazing Vietnamese. Um, Obviously, Mexican food is all over the place here, and there's some,
Yeah, there we go. That's what I like to
yeah.
hear.
It's so much good. There's so much good stuff out here. There's a taco place actually, but right before this, I stopped off and one of my favorite taco truck, La Piñata, here in
Oh,
Vallejo. That
I need to swing by.
yeah, no, it's so good. It's my favorite. Got a buddy of mine who works at a paper who I was like, let's go try this place, and he dug it. It made it on his list of top tacos in the Bay Area, which was kind of fun to see.
La Piñata?
Yeah.
La Piñata.
Piñata. Shout out.
It's not open on the weekends, which is sad. It's just
that's too bad.
That's when tacos are at their best.
I know.
That and Tuesday.
But I do got a second Lou's point in terms of the great diversity of food here in the Bay Area. I've never even heard of, cuisine from Burma. And then I had Burma Superstar with a little bit of a change, but it just blew my mind. I mean, I think it is Filipino food, but the Jollibee, it's like another chain.
He's talking about this place.
Having tomato or banana ketchup noodles with like chopped sausages. It's just crazy. It's the amount of
hot
food.
Dogs, by the way. It's not sausages.
Hot dogs. Yeah, it's just.
Sam goes even better.
Again, but these are chains. That's not even the local food that's here. And I think California, especially the Bay Area, is almost at the perfect spot to get, kind of the middle of getting all these cultures from different areas. I mean, you're so close to Asia, and the Bay Area is really known for having a strong Asian community in this area. And then, like you mentioned, from Mexico, from other Hispanic countries, from, all an American, so, other
Guatemalan
tradition. Exactly. So it's just crazy to see the mix of all of those different cultures all in one area. That it's just crazy to go from district to district, seeing like the cultures that have been here for so long, and seeing all these restaurants and all the history. It's something I've enjoyed, just driving around the area, and I can't imagine having a whole lifetime there, though. So I definitely wish I could have just had so much time, just having endless amount of money and just go restaurant to restaurant, just eating. I just wish I could.
If we can get a sponsor to give Sam endless amounts of money, can we get a bank sponsor for Sam? That might be the goal. Shout out to Iowa. I know me and Sam are from the same area, but Sam grew up in Iowa City. We're in different cities. So our city was always a little bit behind. Iowa City's a college town. They tend to get a few more trendy things. But shout out to the hometown. We're improving, but we need to get more good shows. I feel like shows are shows like the most important thing to help boost like the restaurant economy and something. Because I noticed when we had, I think Sal Volcano came through in November last year. And every time we get a big name in town, all the restaurants are booming. Everybody's doing good business. I know, Lou, you have a little bit more experience with that. Is that the best thing for restaurants? Is like the entertainment industry around it?
I think well, definitely. I mean, to draw people in from outside. But I think, explore your own city. I still find things here in Vallejo that I had no idea existed. Which makes me curious about what in Iowa near you, where both of you came from, is food that you think is interesting there. I mean, cheese curds is not something we have here, so to me that is interesting.
Oh, okay.
Right.
No Culvers around here.
No Culvers, no frozen yogurt, no. Yeah, I mean not frozen custard. Sorry.
Frozen yogurt is the better option. I think you guys are on the right side there. Is cheese curds is that the big Midwest contribution to the food culture? Is it cheese curds? Is that
cheese curds are definitely one. But is that an Iowa thing or a Wisconsin thing?
It's more Wisconsin, but
true, it's not even an Iowa thing.
I mean, we're mostly corn, pork. I'm trying to think.
Soybeans?
Yeah, let me see.
Is a pork roll an Iowa thing?
Like a pork egg roll type thing?
No.
Oh.
It's not like bologna, but it's something kind of in that shape and size.
Oh, okay. So is canned meat an Iowa thing?
I know. Have you ever had Scotcheroos? I think that's what I'm seeing in
Oh,
Iowa. Made right sandwiches, I guess, are technically like that's a whole restaurant chain. I don't know, taco pizza. Did they have that? They definitely gotta have taco pizza out here. There's
taco
no way.
pizza?
What's taco pizza?
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Oh, taco pizza. Okay. It's just pizza with taco toppings on it. It's got,
Oh, okay.
ground beef, tomato, lettuce. I think a lot of the places too will do like Doritos on it.
yeah, or
You know,
like a
it's
walking
probably
taco.
It's probably more of a walking taco. Yeah. Is a walking taco a Midwest thing?
I've never heard of a
Apparently,
walking taco.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
it is
taco in a
Midwest
Dorito
thing.
bag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That definitely runs more in that. Makes me think of like Frito chili pie, which is like a New Mexico thing where they'll open up a bag of Cheetos and they'll put like chili in there and cheese and a bunch of other things, which is also makes me think of there's a Mexican thing they call papitas preparadas, which means prepared potato chips, and it's like you buy a bag and they add all these other toppings to they split the bag
yeah,
open and then add the toppings to it and then you eat it out with a fork.
yeah.
So that's a
That's
walking taco.
I'm looking at it. This is basically the same thing. The potato chips you're talking about, it's potato chips. So maybe it's a little like because Doritos, it's a nacho chip. It's a little different types of chips. But
Right.
yeah, same thing here. What was the last one I just looked up? Frito chili pie. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Food. So we got cheese curry. I guess walking tacos is not a contribution. Sam said
Taco pizza.
Scotcheroos.
Yeah, I don't. It's technically from Scotland, but I know Iowa tries to claim it. I mean, it's just like Rice Krispies. You just put butter on top and peanut butter and chocolate.
Oh, dang.
And then you
Well,
just
that
throw it in the
sounds
oven.
delicious.
Yeah.
Oh, it's top 3 most addicting dessert. It's crazy. I mean, it's literally just corn syrup and peanut butter. It's peanut butter on steroids with chocolate in it. It's insane. You can't have if you have the box around, you're just gonna eat the whole box. Pause.
Oh,
It is what it is.
All right. It's something you want to order from some other place.
Yeah, get like one at a time. They're deadly. If that is, I guess the problem is Scotland is basically in the name. Can Iowa claim that? If Scotland is in the name?
It can't really. I don't know. It's on my list of Iowa cuisine. I mean, I was trying to. I think there's puppy chow too. I don't know if you've ever.
Puppy chow?
I mean, pork tenderloin sandwiches. They try to claim. I don't know. It's all over.
That's just because pork's our thing, though.
Yeah.
I feel like a pork tenderloin's pretty basic. I mean, that's just a pork chicken sandwich, right? Am I crazy? It's the same thing, but pork.
It's just massive. I mean, there's
it
just
is
some
way
places
bigger.
in Iowa that are just proud to make them like bigger than your body almost.
That is
it's
the
crazy.
Iowa thing. The Iowa thing is not actually food itself. It's just like, let's just make the food really big because in the Midwest, like pancakes, they'll do that with pancakes. They're just like, how big of a pancake do you want? The whole table? Okay, we'll do that. That's this restaurant's bit. A hibachi pancake grill? I think we might have just IT, write that down. We might have just came up with a business.
Oh my goodness.
Lou, would that work over there in the San Francisco scene? A hibachi pancake grill? Hibachi pancake grill?
I don't know. I kind of like the idea of you go to the Benihana and they give you breakfast instead of anything
Hibachi
else.
breakfast?
Might say Benihana.
They're flipping pancakes and making eggs instead of the fried rice or whatever it is.
Benny Manana?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I like that.
Is that the name? Slide in the DMs if you guys want to see a pancake themed hibachi restaurant open up in the Bay Area.
Yeah, any investors.
Yeah, funders, slide in. Can we
All
get
right,
some equity guys in the DMs?
I don't know if you had. Yeah, I didn't know if you had anything else, Rem, to ask, but I did want to make sure to shout out Lou before we let him go here. Make sure you check out thevillagedrunk.com. I still love that name. I thought it was hilarious when we first met him. And on Amazon right now, you can buy the official Downton Abbey cocktail book, Appropriate Libations for All Occasions, and the Complete Cocktail Manual, Recipes and Tricks of the Trade for Modern Mixologists. Both are almost 30%. Both almost 30% on sale. So get
them now.
Get them now.
He
Get
can't
them
afford
now.
to not buy them.
Exactly. These are free shops. Is there anything else we missed here, Lou? Anything else we should shout out?
No, man, we covered a lot of ground. This is so much fun.
Can we see the book one more time? Again, it's a beautiful book.
Yeah,
It is beautiful design.
Is my background blur gonna blur it again?
Maybe if you put it in front of your face. I don't know. It's trying to focus on your face.
Yeah, it's not working.
That's all good. Hey, well, it's blurred out because you're supposed to go on Amazon and look it up right now and buy it. You got to see it for yourself.
You got to see it.
So I know Rem will put some links in.
It'll all be below.
description.
Yeah, it'll all be down there. Click on it.
And yeah, thanks again, Lou, for coming on the pod. And yeah, hopefully we'll have you on again sometime soon.
That was fun. Yeah, maybe we can break down the Super Bowl after, or I can watch you guys talk about the Super Bowl breakdown, whatever happens.
Do we need to end it on a pick?
Oh. Okay, sure.
Who you got?
Me, I think, well, mostly because I feel obligated to say this, the 49ers are going to win.
All right. We'll see.
He said take the money line, take the spread. He's got the Niners. Thanks again, Lou. This was amazing.
All right. Thank you.